Hi, my name is Tim. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about millennials and some of the experience I've had working with younger employees in business situations. One example of that was at a company where we did an acquisition of a public company down in Tampa, Florida, and we had to integrate those people into our business and to get them to work together to move their systems to our systems and to get a combined company that would be better and make more money than the two companies individually. We had a number of people in purchasing, accounts payable, and those kinds of departments that we really needed their help to get all this work done. And it was important for us to give them a way to be successful in this job. So we did a lot of what I would call group meetings and work together. One of the things I noticed that people worked much better when you gave them a lot of positive feedback and you reinforce the behaviors that you really like to see them do. So we had a number of places all the way down from our purchasing requirements and how people worked with their data centers to buy different items and purchases. It wasn't similar to our processes, so we needed to change their process, but we really had to understand what they were doing. So we worked with the purchasing team there to give them a lot of good feedback on what they were doing and then help move them from a process that was a little bit different from what we had to a process that would work a lot better and within our system environment. So I think and they were very successful in executing those processes, moving from where they were to where we wanted them to be, all in a positive way. And the key to all that was working with them and talking with them and getting a lot of good feedback. And when we got their feedback and we talked with them about what they were doing and we reinforced all the good things about what they were doing, it seemed to keep the process moving very well. And this was always difficult because at the end of the day, we were closing down this organization. So we had a lot of hostility about working together and being successful together. And I think we had to really reinforce all the good things they were doing, their skill levels, and say how good they were at running this business. So the millennials that we were working with, we really tried to get kind of the emotional integration so that they were committed to the project. As a takeover of a company that was very successful, we had to really get them on board. And the deal wouldn't work very well if we didn't get them on board. Our costs would have gone up and our processes wouldn't have worked as well. Also, being public companies, we were susceptible to all the reporting requirements that CPAs need to make sure happen, and you can't get it wrong. And so getting things wrong was a process that wouldn't be very successful for our shareholders and our investors. So one of the things we did to work with the millennials was to make sure that they were comfortable with the processes and that they had a lot of ability to give feedback. So
can you give us some examples of real people?
So we had a guy named Derek that was in the planning department, and we had to work with him to get the planning processes integrated with our planning and get the forecast put together. As a public company, you got to give out forecasts to the investors, and getting those right is a difficult process. And so we had a lot of face-to-face meetings, a lot of group meetings. We set up video conferencing between the two offices to make sure that we had good face-to-face, good communications, and good processes around that forecasting process. And I think, and we gave him a role so he had a future to look forward to. He knew what he was going to be doing. He knew how he had to behave to be successful. And we gave him a lot of positive feedback. And that process really got everybody on the table together, and we had a very successful integration.
What were some of the things that you said specifically when you said positive feedback? What would you actually say? So
we had to run a lot of complex models associated with building these forecasts. And the models were all the way down to a cabinet in a data center. And so getting the details within his model, figuring out what the variables were, and then giving him feedback on how he had treated those in the past. And then how do we need to integrate that into our model so that we could give some of the metrics to our investors in a consistent way. So giving him a lot of good feedback on what he did in his model, how he developed it, the detail associated with it, and then he also had a team behind him, getting to work with him on his team and how he empowered his team and gave them good responsibilities was a very helpful process for us.
One of the big things that we hear from Millennial is that we want positive feedback, but we don't want to get micromanaged. What did you do to make sure that you weren't micromanaging? Because it sounds like you didn't. You stayed in, and you used all the collaborative methods of using, video conferencing and blah, blah, blah. But what did you do to make sure that you weren't micromanaging? Because it sounds to me like you did a really good job there.
Well, I think the key is a balance of review and control. And while he was empowered to be in control of the whole process and to work with his team to get the results, there was a review element that was put on top of it. And so his requirement was to present the material, bring all the assumptions to bear, and then give us a way to look at what he's doing and then give him feedback on what things we thought he may need to consider to revise his model, to make it more consistent with what we were doing in our business, and to get the right result from an overall positive implementation standpoint. So Derek did a great job making sure that his team was empowered, that he was empowered, and that they knew where their roles were, and that they were a key part in our success.